presentation today is going to be on how to succeed in job interviews. Okay, we're going to discuss what goes on before the interview, during the interview, and after the interview. Before the interview, there are three main things you need to do. The first being to research the company and the industry. The second being to prepare points that you want to communicate during the interview. And the third is just to practice interviewing skills. On researching the company and the industry. Why would we do this? It's because employers gauge the motivation and the interest from the interviewee based on how much they know about the organization. You need to research the position, the company, and the industry that you are interviewing to enter into. And there are many different ways to do this. One is by simply reading the job description. Another is looking on the organization's website or even their social medias like Instagram or Facebook. And the last is just speak to people in your life that you have connections with, whether that be via LinkedIn or someone that you know personally, like a family member or a friend. Because oftentimes you know someone that might know somebody inside the organization that you're interviewing for. Next is to prepare key points that you want to communicate. You need to evaluate why you're interested in the position and be able to tell the interviewer that, as well as explain why you're a good candidate for the position. Next, practice interviewing skills. There are two good ways to do this. The first is to research and find common interview questions. This can be found on the internet or even in books, as seen over here. And then write down your own answers to these questions so you can be prepared whenever you're asked them during the interview. And the second is to schedule a practice interview. This is common on many college campuses as well as in the community. Another way you can engage in a practice interview is virtually. Here are some common interview questions that you could practice. The first is to be able to tell the company something about yourself. They want to get to know you personally. The second is to explain how you heard about the position, whether this was from a friend or if you saw the posting online. The third is explaining why you want to work there. The fourth is why you decided to apply for that position specifically. The fifth, what is your greatest strength? And the sixth, very similar, what are your weaknesses? And the seventh, what do you know already about this company or organization? We already touched on this a little to explain why this is so important to the interviewing process. And the last is simply why the company should hire you. On to the day before the interview. The first thing that you need to do is find directions to the interviewing location. This is important so you know how long it will take you to travel so you can leave in plenty of time, as well as just knowing the route to get there. The next would be to prepare an interview outfit. This is also very important because the way you present yourself is the very first impression that you're going to make on the interviewer. The third is to note the name and title of the interviewer. You need to know how to address them properly. The fourth is to prepare copies of your resume, a list of references, and bring a pen and notepad so that you can take notes throughout the interview. And last, but certainly not least, is to get a good night's rest. This is important so you can truly put your best foot forward during your interview the next day. On to the interview outfit. On this side of the screen, we have interview attire for men, and the other side for women. There are many commonalities in the two, such as wearing dark shoes, as well as not wearing busy or distracting patterns or bright colors. The interviewers don't really want to see your personal sense of style. They just want to get to know you and see if you're qualified for the position. So it's important to represent yourself in a professional way. Additionally, cleanliness, so with men, neat facial hair, and also jewelry in moderation for women and no jewelry for men is standard practice for interview dress. Onto your resume. The purpose of a resume is really to introduce your qualifications and explain your career path up to this point, where you've worked prior, and and what all has led you to this interview. And there are five parts to a resume. The first is contact information, which will generally include your name, your phone number, email, and oftentimes even a LinkedIn account. The next would be an objective statement. The objective statement is really just kind of to explain why you are interested in this position specifically and why you're qualified. It's a kind of a statement explaining who you are and what you're doing at the interview. The next would be the education section. During this section, you would say where you went to school, your major, possibly even minors, relevant coursework, and your GPA. Then the next section would be experience. During this section, you would detail other places you've worked, the relevant experience you have from these jobs, and the amount of time you worked here. Sometimes people will even include contact information from former bosses. And last is additional skills you might have, like programs that you're familiar with, such as Microsoft Excel, PowerPoint, and Word. On to the day of the interview. It is very important to arrive early. It is standard 10 to 15 minutes before the interview is set to begin. Then, be sure to be considerate and polite to everyone you meet while you're there. You never know who you're meeting, and it's important to make a good impression. The third is to silence your mobile device. This is out of respect, and it comes across very unprofessional to be on your phone or for your phone to go off during the interview. So silence it, that way this will not be a problem. And the last is simply just to have a positive attitude. Having a positive attitude is very beneficial during the interview because these people could be future coworkers. They want to work with someone that's positive, just the way you want to work with someone that's positive. Finally, we're on to during the interview. The first thing is to listen. You need to listen carefully to the questions the interviewer is asking you so that you can answer every part of the question. The next is to relate your skills from your past jobs to the questions they are asking you to truly show you have relevant experience and that you are a good fit for the job. The next is to focus on the positives. Oftentimes things don't go the way we want to, but we wouldn't want to explain examples of negative ways we've handled things in the past. We want to focus on the positive attributes. The next one is to use clear and direct language. Stay on topic when they're asking you questions. The next would be eye contact. This also ties into the last bullet point, which is confident body language. But eye contact shows that you are really listening to the interviewer, and this shows respect. And a confident body language, as can be seen in this photo, is often really just standing straight and carrying yourself like you know what you're doing. SARA. This is an acronym that stands for Situation, Action, Result, and Application. It's a tactic that's beneficial for providing specific examples of skills and qualifications during an interview. An example of this would be you would touch on a situation, a particularly difficult one in a past job. Then you would explain an action you took to solve this problem, the result of the action, and how you would apply this specific situation to the job you're applying for. On to after the interview. The first, and I think most important, is to send a thank you note within 24 hours. The second would be to evaluate performance and kind of within yourself think about how you did during the interview and if you would give yourself the job. And the third is potentially additional interviews. On thank you notes, we have an example on this side of the screen. Thank you notes are important as it reiterates interest in the position. You really do want to drive home to these interviewers that you want the job. The next would be that it reminds your interviewer of all your qualifications as you can restate why you are a perfect fit for this job in your thank you note. And lastly, it really makes you stand out from the other applicants as not many people will take the time to write and send a thank you note. Next would be to evaluate your performance. During this, you would ask yourself if there were any questions that you found particularly difficult to answer. And then think of a way in the future you might answer it better. And this way, your future interviews will hopefully go even better than this one. And on additional interviews, there are two main ways this would be conducted. The first would be interviewing with higher levels of management, and the second would be aptitude test rounds of interviews. An aptitude test sort of gauges if you have the skill set necessary to fulfill this position. Also, additional interviews mean you are one step closer to getting the job. In conclusion, in order to be successful in an interview, it's important to research about the organization and the position you're applying for, as well as research simply how interviews go and know the questions that they're going to ask you. The next is to prepare. Prepare directions to the interview and prepare what you're going to wear, as well as preparing a resume. Then, onto the actual interview. Be confident, speak clearly, and be positive. And finally, following up, send a thank you note and be sure to reiterate how much you want the job and how qualified you truly believe you are. If you do all of these things to have a successful interview, maybe you'll be hired.